Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Sohn, this is your third hearing. That is highly unusual. One of the reasons that you've had three hearings is that in the first hearing, you went through the entire hearing without disclosing the sweetheart settlement concerning Locast. And the entire purpose of the second hearing was when that came to light. You actively misled Ranking Member Wicker when he asked you in writing about the $32 million settlement. You did not correct the record that it was, in fact, only 2% of that amount, $700,000. You also disclosed at that second hearing that you never notified the White House of this sweetheart deal, even though you signed it literally the day after they announced their intention to nominate you. My question is this: do you think that your failure to disclose the secret deal to this committee and your failure to disclose it to the White House, do you think that reflected poor judgment, yes or no?
No, I answered Senator Wicker's question honestly, okay, and on advice of counsel.
No, you don't think it was poor judgment?
No, I do not, because I was bound by the confidentiality agreement of the settlement.
With respect, no, you were not. The confidentiality agreement, Section 6.0, prohibited you from communicating with the media or the press. The last I checked, the United States Senate is not the media or the press. You had an obligation to answer this body accurately, and you did not. I would note the White House is not the media or the press, and you told this committee you didn't inform the president of it either. But let me move on. You don't think it was poor judgment to mislead this committee or to mislead the president who was nominating you. Let me ask you a second question.
Senator, I don't agree that I misled this committee, so I would like to make that.
The record is, I believe, abundantly clear, and in fact, I will be sending out my cross-examination from the last hearing, where you repeatedly mislead this committee in that hearing. And in fact, we'll go ahead and actually put this up. I'll note, I asked, did you disclose to the committee that agreement? I did. Did you disclose the agreement to the committee? I did. Hold on a second. Did you disclose to this committee? Yes or no? I did. You disclosed the $700,000 secret settlement? No. So 3 times you say I did, and then, oh, no. You did not. You misled this committee, and you also misled the White House. Let me ask you secondly, the 15 months that your nomination has been pending, you've made not 1, not 2, not 3. You've made 12 separate political contributions to senators running for office. I've been in the Senate 10 years. I have never seen a nominee make contributions to senators while your nomination is pending. I've never seen that once. I had my staff search the records. If we could find anyone in the Trump administration who had done that, my staff was unable to find that. You've been a significant political donor over the years, giving over $32,000. You gave. Do you believe it was poor judgment to give 12 separate political contributions to Democrat senators while your nomination was pending?
Senator, I'm a citizen who just wanted to participate in the Democratic process.
Do you think it's poor judgment to cut checks to senators who are voting on your nomination while it's pending? No other nominee that we can find has ever done that. Do you think it was poor judgment?
Relatively small donations, no, I don't.
It was over $1,000, $32,000 over your life.
Well, that's over my life.
Well, over $1,000 while your nomination was pending. All right.
But not to one person.
There were to a dozen senators, to a dozen different senators, including senators who've been critical of your nomination and senators who have not. You managed to cover the waterboard of Democrats running for office. All right, let's turn to another issue, which is you have been an active supporter of a left-wing activist group called Fight for the Future. And I will say the record of Fight for the Future is really quite remarkable because they have blasted members of this committee on both sides of the aisle. Here's a billboard Fight for the Future put up in West Virginia in 2017 attacking Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat. The billboard essentially accuses Joe Manchin of being corrupt. Ms. Sohn, do you believe Joe Manchin is corrupt?
Absolutely not.
You don't? Okay, well, that's interesting. I will point out, in 2017, Fight for the Future also erected similar billboards accusing Senator Tester and Senator Peters of being corrupt, both of whom are members of this committee. I can't recall a nominee who's actively supported efforts to blast members of this committee to run billboards.
Senator, may I address that, please?
You may.
When you say actively, I give every single organization with whom I work on net neutrality, $100 contributions at the end of the year.
Ms. Sohn, with
Doesn't
respect,
mean I agree with their
tactics.
tactics.
The time is limited, and yes, it does, because after they put up the billboards attacking Manchin, Tester, and Peters as corrupt, afterwards, you sent this tweet. Just made my end-of-year donation to this organization, urging others to do it after they did that. And because the time is limited, I'll note this group also blasted Marsha Blackburn, Dan Sullivan, and Roger Wicker, and astonishingly called for Chairwoman Cantwell to be fired. And after each of those, to be removed from as chairwoman of this committee, after each of those, you supported it. And in fact, I want to turn to the final point, the Roger Wicker one, where this group protested and said, you're buying a senator, and you said you don't support their tactics. I'm going to point out, you tweeted, well done, to this radical group who blasted the former ranking member of this committee and saying that his donors were trying to buy a senator. If they were trying to buy a senator, were you trying to buy senators when you made a dozen contributions?
Senator, I did not know, number one, that that was about Senator Wicker. Number two, I was criticizing Senator
Roger Wicker right there.
Okay, well,
that is literally what you retweeted was his name.
That's fine, but I was actually criticizing the donors and not criticizing the senator.
Senator Markey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have known Gigi Sohn for 30 years. Ms. Sohn is one of the single most qualified candidates for any position to ever come before the Commerce Committee for confirmation. We knew that before Ms. Sohn testified before this committee in December of 2021 as President Biden's nominee for the FCC based on her decades of service protecting the public interest, that she had an outstanding record. And we certainly know that now, as Ms. Sohn comes before the committee for a third time, that her record is historically good. Since President Biden selected Ms. Sohn, she has become the subject of smears, double standards, and personal attacks. And let's be clear, it's not just Ms. Sohn who has suffered during this process. The American people have suffered as well, because in the time when telecommunications policy and broadband are more important than ever, the Federal Communications Commission, the expert agency, has been missing a commissioner. And without Ms. Sohn, the FCC has been unable to take critical steps to close the digital divide, make sure the internet remains free and open for everyone, protects consumers, and ends the homework gap once and for all for American children. So make no mistake, every day that Ms. Sohn goes without being on the FCC is a win for giant telecommunications companies and their army of lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. It is a loss for the American people. And why do the giant companies oppose Ms. Sohn? Because she believes in Darwinian, paranoia-inducing competition in the telecommunications field. She believes in consumer protections. Those giant incumbent companies want to change the name to incumbent communications companies. They don't believe in competition, and they don't believe in consumer protections. And that's why they don't want Gigi Sohn on the committee. So I would like to actually, for the record, introduce the 400 individuals and organizations who are supporting her for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. And I would like to turn to you, Ms. Sohn, with the remainder of my time and give you an opportunity to respond to any of the accusations that have already been made about you in this committee.
Yeah, I'd actually like to address something that Senator Thune talked about an alleged leak at the FCC. And what he's talking about was an Inspector General report, 2016, 7 years ago, where the Inspector General found that because Chairman Wheeler had authorized me to speak to the press about something that was non-public, that it became public. So there was no leak, and the Inspector General cleared everybody of wrongdoing. So I think it's really important to understand that when you're talking about my honesty and integrity, the IG report found no wrongdoing, and there was no leak. That is a meme that keeps getting repeated, and that just frankly drives me a little bit nuts. The other thing that I wanted to discuss was back to the Locast case. The Locast case was never about money. Even before I joined the board in 2019, 2 months after the case was filed, the parties agreed that this case was not about piracy, that it was about whether Locast qualified for an exemption as a nonprofit under the copyright law. And that's why this case has never been about money. What the networks wanted and why they settled was because they wanted Locast gone. And that $32 million was just put in a public document in order to scare away the next Locast.